So there's currently actually a pretty good offer in the store currently. It's going to vary, though, depending upon how much money you normally spend in the game. So I'm going to show you here. If you look here, you're going to see I'm picking up some, there was some silver here too, but I removed it just so we could see this all in one nice screenshot. You're going to see there's 10 books, 1,000 gems, 10 books, 1,000 gems, 10 books, 1,000 gems. Okay, so what is that? So in the shop currently, there's something called the Great Tome Pack, and I just bought it, and I didn't keep it up here to show you or anything because it's going to vary, like I said. But basically, at the moment, there's a pack currently in the game that straight up just sells you legendary books, silver, and gems. And the deal is not that bad. For me, it was 50 bucks. It gave me 10 books, gave me 1.5 million silver and 1,000 gems. If you are someone who is this is one of the better packs in the game to get, because you can, for 150 bucks, you can basically buy 3,000 gems, 4.5 million silver, but 30 legendary books. 150 bucks is a ton of money. We shouldn't be spending that kind of game on the mobile, money on a mobile game, but 30 legendary books, it's basically the only time I've ever seen them do anything like this. Thank you, because being able to well out for books is extremely difficult, and I know it's paying for it, but having the opportunity to get your hand on 30 books for 150 bucks regardless is pretty cool. So there is that currently in the store. If you need legendary books, I probably would recommend it. Now, what I wanted to talk about today in terms of characters was we are going to talk about when you do buy your legendary books, where should you put them in terms of legendary characters? So I'm going to walk through kind of 10 characters that are definitely good legendary-wise when fully booked. I try not to make this like the obvious ones like, hey guys, Sifi, you would have never thought of that, but really try to be actually useful here. So Arbiter is easily going to be number one. Everyone's going to get Arbiter at some point in their life here, and her fully booked is actually pretty good because her basic attack gives you weaken. This one here is going to remove the increase the chance to 100%. You obviously want the cooldown. And cooldown once again. Okay, fully booked is obvious for Arbiter. If you happen to get lucky enough and get a debuff extender, either Vizier or Warlord, both of these people, you're going to want to fully book them, mainly just so that you can get on the basic attack the increased chance for debuff. Bad Alcazar is an obvious full book, but Rosin here is another one kind of like Arbiter where everyone's going to eventually be able to get him for free at some point, even though it takes forever, yes. But when you do get him, fully booking him's not bad either, because his basic attack has a debuff chance here. You want the cooldown for the shear so you can keep it up, and then the cooldown for bog down isn't necessary because most of the times you're using it once, maybe twice, if you're doing Fire Knight or something like that. But it's only 3 books. So he's not a major booker too. Like all of these are fairly good here. This one here is 5. This is only 3. So that's 8. And then this is only 4. So it's 12 books right there, which is, yeah, it's 12 books, but that's not as bad as some of these guys. Like the other fusion character that we had is like Harvest Jack, right? And Harvest Jack is probably someone that would not have been a terrible person to book either. But if you look at the books here, we got 4. We got 5, and then we got 5. So that's 2 more, right? We got 14 on him. Some of these can get even more expensive, man. I forget exactly which ones of them, but there's people out there that just take like an absolute insane amount of books. I mean, look at this one right here, right? There's 5 just on the basic attack. So you can get unlucky and roll the basic attack like 5 times while you're just trying to get the cooldown on one of these. All right, but let's move on to the next one that should be good to book, which is actually going to be any of your counterattacks. So if you happen to, I'm going to include Skull Crusher in here too, just because we're talking about counterattacks. So if you happen to get, like, let's say a Valkyrie, okay? Or a Martyr. This is probably one of the more obvious ones. And I said I wasn't going to do obvious ones like Sifi, but probably should mention it. Counterattacks are going to be very important. The other ones that are fairly important are going to be people that have a major cooldown that it's pretty much necessary in order to make the character good. So like Lissandra's right next to it, so she's kind of an example of this one too. I would say with her exhaust move and energize, in order to really make her shine, like she can lock out Fire Knight alone just by herself. And so in order to make her shine, you have to have it booked though, right? Or else you're going to have an insane amount of speed to make it work. That's not even viable. So she's a character that, in my opinion, goes from in PvE being like kind of useful to like really, really strong when you get her booked. So people that have that kind of cooldown from like a 4 to a 3, if it's from like a 7 to a 6, it's almost not even that big of a deal, to be honest, because it's like you're not going to use it that many times. That's kind of where we go back to Rosin here, where we go back here. You see how this is a 6 cool, a turn cooldown there. And that's not even like that impressive. If it was 4 to 3, well, then maybe you're cycling it in more often, it's more in your rotation, but a 6 or something, you don't really have to worry about that much. Now, the other ones that can be kind of interesting are characters like this guy, where more or less they're completely useless until they get a cooldown. Now, Candifron is not really a good character, but if he's the only character you really have on the legendary side of things, and let's say you have all rares and like an epic and you haven't put Candifron early or something, he actually can walk you through a lot of the dungeons. If you happen, let's say you got books and he's your only legendary, you could try to get the cooldown on him because he does 1 billion damage. And I've used him in Dragon 20 and he's hit hard. He's been like a good carry. I think it was like a 1 minute, 48 seconds, something clear. So we're not talking godlike times here, but it can happen, is what I'm saying. So characters like this one, where if you pull, and I'm not saying Candifron in particular, but if you pull a character and the character is the only legendary you have, and it is a character that is a damage dealer that has like 1 primary AoE, like Candifron, and it can go from like a 4 to a 3 cooldown, or a 3 to a 2, or a way where you can get a character that has like 1 good move to more happen, that might be something which in that case would be a little bit more viable. Now, the other obvious ones are people like Xavia, where it's debuffed chance. I don't have this one booked. This is my second Xavia, but if you look here, this one's booked. The debuff chance, for instance, is something that is another highly valuable use of books, especially poison. So if you have someone like Xavia, or, Tomb Lord's another example of someone that kind of does poisons, or even Richtof, right? But though Richtof is a cooldown here. But Nethro's another good example here, where he has poisons on his basic, but the percentage chance to go up. Anything that applying poison percentage chance tends to be pretty high value as well, if it's a character that poison's going to matter. There is, going back to the point about damage with Yannicka, Kyra Mobile actually has a video where he fully booked his Yannicka to make the point that the damage dealing can actually matter with this move. And this is a great example because he fully booked her and she's the carry for him. He does a sub 2-minute Fire Knight run using Yannicka. And I think that's pretty interesting as well. So there is some use for books on the damage ones. But going back to the poisons here, using debuff chance on poisons is a highly useful one as well. I think that the only characters that maybe have poisons that aren't fully I was going to say this one here, because this is kind of, it's got 2 things going for it on Tomb Lord, which is 1, the poisons percentage chance goes up as well as the cooldown. This is probably one of the better examples of a bookable move. And I know I'm not really doing like the top 10 champions, like here's 10 champions to go, but I want to do is kind of explain the process of where books are useful. And as I'm just, developing this discussion, it's coming apparent to me, the best way to do is just kind of explain where I would use my book so you can think about it for yourselves and decide with your own account. But one like this is a fantastic example of a really good move to book, because buff and debuff chance percentage as well as the cooldown. And then it goes from like a 4 to a 3. So that's much more usable. And then you can combine that with something else, like a Xavia or even a Karam, for instance, who's an epic that can pop the poisons. And you do mass damage there as well. So for poison percentage chance is another highly good use. I would say the only other ones that are like for sure you want to think about is PvP related ones. So like Tormund's an example that's a fusible one, but you really wanted to book his passive so that in PvP it's highly more usable. Gorgo's an example of this. I didn't do his cooldowns. So some of these are like you're going to want to get the 100%. So if it's like an 80% chance and you can book him 3 more times to get him 100%, a lot of times getting the 100% matters a lot, because if you miss one person, you can lose a match because of that. So ones like this can be a good example of another PvP type of move you can book there as well. Characters that you want to just fully max out are characters that are anywhere in like the top 10 list. They're just disgusting characters. Sifi, Rhodos, Arbiter, pulling Santa Claus, Xavia, Vizier. If you pull any of the really disgusting characters, those are good too. And there's a couple characters that are worth books just for damage alone. Trunda would be one example of this. You can see I have her A3 book just for the damage. Characters that have really high damage ratios or do insane amounts of damage, those characters can be worth the books as well if they're like +10, +10, +10 like you're seeing here, because then the base damage numbers can go up and that kind of or it's 10% multiplicative, but the damage numbers will go up overall, and it will help in terms of arena, things like that. But that's kind of a breakdown of where I would put my books, and I hope that they're just kind of like the general, there we go. I hope that they're just kind of general blabbering about legendary books has maybe given you a little bit more information in the terms of the way I look at legendary books. The only other ones I would throw as an honorable mention is if you get legendary attack down like Alton or something like that. Like, again, I would throw that with like the poison percentages, things that you increase those debuff buff percentage chance. Highly important. So hopefully this was helpful for you guys. Let me know if you want me to do like a part 2 for like epic books or something like that. This is kind of a new, very casual type discussion where I try to break down my thought process instead of like just straight up explaining something to you guys. And we'll see if this new teaching method helps at all. So I love y'all. Thanks for watching this. If you would consider subscribing, as we are really close to my next goal, which is 35,000. And when we hit 35,000, I'm going to do a giveaway on my Twitch stream as well. So stay tuned for more news on that. I love y'all, and I'll see you on the next video.